Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about one of my guilty pleasures when it comes to the ranked ladder, Swordsoul. So I know this is a deck that a lot of you are probably sick of seeing on your opponent's side of the field, but to be perfectly honest, it doesn't matter how much I see it, it's still one of my favorite decks. I love playing it so much. It's so straightforward, it's not massively complicated, and it still maintains a lot of power. There's a lot of tricky options you can include for some decent counterplay. It never feels like you're completely locked out of a match. So there's a lot of things about this deck that I really enjoy, plus how accessible it is to new players. The only real URs you need are the Moyi, as well as the Grandmaster and some of the Synchro monsters. But like even that, a lot of these aren't strictly necessary either. So it's very accessible for new players as well, and is definitely a great starting point into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! So Swordsoul is definitely up there among my favorites. This is how I'm currently playing it. I think it's a little bit different to how most people are playing it, but it's not off by a mile, you know, it's pretty similar. It is a rather formulaic sort of deck, so nothing really super new here. A couple of cards that maybe you can cut and change and do whatever you want with, but ultimately relatively straightforward. At the end, we're going to be doing a card-by-card deck profile for anyone who hasn't seen this deck. Maybe if you're in the lower ranks and are looking for a deck to rank up with, this is going to be the deck for you. I think that this is the best deck in the game. I know Branded is getting more results, and I think that is a more objective measurement of how good a deck is. Ultimately, if it's winning more, it must be better. Pretty simple. But to be honest, I think just the power of Swordsoul and its adaptability, I think in the vast majority of instances, I think puts it ahead of Branded. Maybe it just has a positive matchup against Branded, but maybe Branded beats a lot of things that doesn't. Who knows? All I know is that this deck is supremely powerful. It'll be one of the easiest Diamond Platinum climbs of your life. If you're not even in Platinum yet, this deck is guaranteed to get you there with zero hassle. So if you like what you're seeing and you want to see anything more, feel free to subscribe. You know, it doesn't cost you anything, and you might as well stick around for some more content. We've got not only competitive decks like this, we've also got a load of really fun decks, like our last one before this was Buster Bladers, which is definitely a whole lot of fun as well, and extremely powerful too. So we've got all kinds of options here on the channel, so if you like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel content in particular, feel free to stick around and subscribe, and also like the video if you enjoy after watching it. And you can leave down below what your thoughts on Swordsoul are. I understand it's probably going to be predominantly negative, but to be honest, I don't feel like the deck is oppressive enough to the point where you can't play against it. I don't feel like it's too unhealthy for the metagame. I think it's just very straightforward, very consistent, and very powerful. I think that is what's putting it in the upper echelons. I don't think it's unfair. But again, you tell me what you think. You come to your own conclusions. I'm not here to make up your minds for you. Ultimately, that's all I have to say right now. Deck profile at the end. Let's get into game number one. Alrighty, game one, and this hand doesn't look fantastic off the bat, but it is actually an extremely powerful hand. We're going to go for Swordsoul Taya here. Swordsoul Taya then banish the emergence from the graveyard to summon a Swordsoul token to our field. We're going to take this opportunity to negate the Maxi using Cult of the Grave. We could also have used Cross-Out Designator, but it doesn't really matter to us, to be honest. Either or would have been fine. We maybe could have kept the Cult of the Grave and used the Cross-Out in case we top deck it off a Pot of Desires later on, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We're going to Synchro Summon now using our token into Swordsoul Grandmaster Shizao, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. Taya's going to send from the deck to the graveyard the Ashuna, and Grandmaster's going to add the Strategist to our hand. Perfect. Pot of Desires here. Banish 10, draw 2, draw into a second emergence, which gives us a discard target for our Strategist, summon itself and a token. The Ashuna then banish itself to summon out the Vishuda to the field. Then we summon out our Sinister Sovereign. We are locked into worm monsters, but that's fine. We're going to go for the Heavenly Circle, tributing Vishuda to add Protos to our hand. That's why we did that. Protos then banish 3, summon itself, locking out of Dark for the next 2 turns, and pass. So that puts us in really good stead against a good number of decks, but our opponent's going to hit us with the Gamma Seal right off the bat, getting rid of our Sinister Sovereign. There is the Numeron Network, sending Numeron calling to the graveyard, bringing out 4 gates. He's going to immediately link summon into Avramax. He knew for a fact, so our opponent was smart there. Grandmaster Shizao can banish a worm monster from the graveyard to target and negate one of their monsters, so we knew on his first attack we were going to negate his gate, and it would end up not activating its effect. It would get destroyed by battle, and he wouldn't get the boost, meaning the rest of his gates wouldn't really be all that strong. So he decided to make the executive decision to straight link summon into Crusadia, taking out our Proto, so that now we're struggling for ways to get rid of that Avramax. This guy is untargetable. I can't target anything but it for attacks, and if it battles a special summon monster, it gains attack points equal to the monster it's battling. So we have a very specific out to this card. We're going to try and maneuver our way into getting it. We're going to bait the bullet here and sacrifice our Grandmaster to add Mo Yi to our hand. The Grandmaster does nothing here. Normal summon Mo Yi, go to activate its effect, revealing Vishuda, but our opponent's going to hit us with a Max C there. I believe we're going to flip up our Crossout Designator, absolutely. We're not going to allow that Max C to go through. And basically, we're just going to hopefully stop our opponent from drawing a whole bunch of cards. We have a plan for what we're going to try to do to win this game, but we need to set it up right. Now we're going to Synchro Summon here into Grandmaster Shi Zhao. I know it's a bit odd that we gave one up to search for Mo Yi earlier on off of this card, but we need to activate its search effect to grab the Strategist from our deck. Swordsoul Mo Yi allows us to draw, but our opponent's going to use Call by the Grave to target the Grandmaster that's in the graveyard to stop the one that's on our field from searching our deck. That's a real problem. That means we don't get our Strategist, which is very, very unfortunate. We do draw into Infinite Impermanence. Unfortunately, the Avramax is untargetable, so that does not do us a lot of favors right now. So again, we're once again at the mercy of this Avramax, taking out our second Grandmaster, dealing another 3,000 points of direct damage. So we're not looking too great here, to be perfectly honest. We are sort of on the dicey end of it. We top deck into Mo Yi, we normal summon it, and go to use the Vishuda as material to get our token. Our opponent has another copy of Infinite Impermanence there. I think that might actually be there first. But they've got the Imperm, they're stopping our Mo Yi, so no token for us. We're forced to pass it back to our opponent. Now, Avramax only gains attack points when it battles a special summoned monster, so against our Mo Yi, it does not gain its attack boost, so we survive with a few more life points than we otherwise would have. We top deck here into Tenyi Spirit Adhara. This is a rough situation to be in. We're just going to pass it back to our opponent. We're going to pray he doesn't have a way to finish us off. He's going to swing in with his Avramax, taking out the Gamma Seal. We are officially defenseless and we are struggling, but we do have another turn. So what are we going to top deck into? Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. This gives us a possibility. So we're going to special summon out the Adhara. First of all, link summon with the Adhara into Monk of the Tenyi. Then we special summon the Vishuda, and we're going to normal summon then the Ghost Bell, so we can level 10 synchro summon into the Cheng Ying. Cheng Ying, get reducing, get boosting. Then we're going to use the effect of Heavenly Dragon Circle in the graveyard, banish it to search our deck for a Tenyi card, adding the Ashuna to hand. Then the Cheng Ying, banish and banish, getting rid of 2 additional cards. Adhara banishes itself from the graveyard to add back the Strategist to hand. Strategist, discard the Ashuna that we searched for, summon itself, summon a token, synchro into the Baron de Fleur. There's 9,100 damage, 9,200 damage, plus a little 1,200 hit there from our Strategist, clear out the Numero network, and game complete. Turnaround. I really want this. Is honestly, when I played this game, I thought to myself, we got to make a Swordsoul video. Absolutely, this deck is too much fun. Look at the turnaround on that game. Completely switched around. We knew that we needed to go into the Cheng Ying right from the start. That's why we were trying to facilitate searching our deck for the Strategist. Again, we probably could have done it a little bit quicker than we did, but honestly, it worked out just fine. We did everything we needed to. But yeah, that is pretty much it for game number 1. Let's get into game number 2. Already getting into game 2. We have a few options here. We're going to open up with Ashuna, then link summon into Monk of the Tenyi, simply to put it into the graveyard so we have a target for our Taya. Taya banish 1 to summon a Swordsoul token, and then we synchro summon into Swordsoul Grandmaster Shi Zhao. Shi Zhao's going to search our deck. Taya's going to mill a worm to the graveyard, which is entirely fine. We're going to mill out an Adhara, and then we're going to add the Strategist to our hand. So we sent Adhara so we can banish it from our graveyard to add the Ashuna back to our hand, meaning we can now discard the Ashuna to summon out the Strategist as well as an additional Swordsoul token. So there is our level 10 going into the Baron de Fleur. Pretty standard setup for us here. We're going to deal 1200 points of damage. We activate the Ashuna preemptively just to put a Vishuda on board, simply for follow-up next turn. There was no need to do that. Probably could have held off on it, but it's whatever. Our opponent's going to go Pot of Desires here. Banish 10, draw 2. We decide to allow it. Our opponent goes Layer of Darkness. We're not going to allow that. That is incredibly dangerous. So we're going to activate our Baron de Fleur, negate and destroy the Layer of Darkness. Set 4, pass. That is intimidating, because now we no longer have any back row negates. He's going to go Metaverse. Now he's got that Layer of Darkness up anyway, and the Deck Devastation Virus comes out. So how does this deck we're playing against work? Layer of Darkness Virus. Layer of Darkness itself, its main effect is that it changes all monsters on the field to dark, and once per turn, if you were to tribute a monster in your field, you can tribute a dark monster your opponent controls as if you controlled it, which means that he can activate his virus cards, which normally require you to tribute a dark monster in your field to activate their effects. Now, not only are you gaining their massively powerful effects, you're also tributing your opponent's cards to activate them, which is brutal. A really, really cool strategy. Activating the Deck Devastation Virus, clearing out anything and everything with 1500 attack or less, and meaning so that the next 3 turns he checks every card we draw, and if it's a monster with 1500 attack or less, it gets destroyed. The Shadow Imprisoning Mirror also negates all dark monsters on the field, and of course Layer of Darkness turns us all into dark, so now all of our dark monsters are negated. Moyi, we're just going to summon it. Our opponent, basically, we're in a position where we need to win this ASAP, so we just swing, trying to get as much damage across the board as we can. We also get a token from the field spell during the end phase because one of our cards are attributed. Doesn't really come into it too heavily. Our opponent's going to go Pot of Prosperity here, banish 6 to check the top 5 cards, check the top 6 cards of their deck and add one of them to their hand. So the card they're going to add is, of course, the Deck Devastation Virus. You can have more than one of them live at any time. The Lilith then would typically tribute a dark monster to reveal 3 normal traps from your deck and set 1 to your field. But again, he could tribute one of our monsters to do that, which is pretty nuts. However, he is negated by his own Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. But again, he still gets to quick play tribute one of our cards. We're going to grab the Ashuna here. Ashuna is safe from the Deck Devastation Virus with 1600 attack points. We're going to bounce that Layer of Darkness back to the hand, but not before he's able to activate the Deck Devastation Virus once again to get rid of our Grand Master. So yes, very unfortunate that all of our cards have now been dealt with, but the Layer of Darkness is, again, still unfortunately on the field. I was about to say bounced back, but again, the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror still hinders things that activate in the graveyard. Typically they wouldn't be affected, but because Vishuda was just naturally a dark monster, it was still negated. Unfortunate. We summon out Ashuna. We're just going to take out the Lilith, and we're going to see what we can do here. Passing back to your opponent. Why didn't he use the Lilith? Well, the Lilith, you can only use the Layer of Darkness to tribute one of your opponent's monsters once per turn. So the Lilith would have had to tribute one of his cards, basically, instead of one of mine, which didn't do him a lot of favors. Gonna grab another token. The 2 Deck Devastation Viruses are still devastating our hands as we draw. Any monster we draw that is weaker than 1500 attack, it gets automatically destroyed. Our opponents only got 1 face down card left. They had no plays to make on that turn. We top deck into the Cosmic Cyclone, activating it to clear out the Layer of Darkness, and our opponent calls it quits right there. That is why we play Cosmic Cyclone. It deals with these funky decks like this. It deals with Flounderies, it deals with Eldritch, it deals with Sky Strikers to an extent, kind of, if you can banish their Widowwankers or banish their Engage, stuff like that. Tends to help a lot. But yes, ultimately a really, really cool back and forth. That game, I wanted to show that off, not because it shows like, oh, the brutal power of Sword Souls and stuff. It shows a lot of adaptability and like the grind game a little bit, shows that you're sort of able to make plays, but mainly wanted to show that off because it was just such a good match against a good deck and a good opponent. That's pretty much it. I just want to show off a good game. With that being said, let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, getting into the 3rd and final game here. We are going 2nd on this occasion, and we're going up against Marincess. We're going to activate Maxi here right off the bat, but of course it's going to get ashed. If Maxi resolved, you wouldn't be seeing this video right now. So we still have an Imperm in our hand. Now, You're going to watch very closely here. This is what you want to do in the Marincess matchup, right? This is how you beat Marincess. You're going to watch them make their plays. So go Blue Slug. They have the Blue Tang in the graveyard, which will activate as well. Blue Slug is basically going to add their monster back to their hand from the graveyard. There's the Spring Girl back to their hand. Blue Tang is going to reveal the top 3 of their deck, and they get to grab a Marincess among them. So there's the Mandarin being added to their hand. What we're going to do is sort of speed through our opponent's plays here a little bit, because again, it's standard Marincess stuff. Out comes the Sea Angel to search for their field spell. Spring Girl as well, sending another monster from deck to graveyard. There's the Battle Ocean, and from here everything is relatively straightforward. Special the Mandarin. There's a Splash Mage, resurrect Spring Girl, then link yet again into Anemone, resurrect the Spring Girl again, then link summon again into the Coral Triangle. This is it. So how does Marincess work? They work off of the trap card Marincess Wave, or by using the link monster Crystal Heart. I'm not seeing a Crystal Heart here, are you? No, I didn't think so. So what are they going to be using? Marincess Wave. How do they get Marincess Wave? With the Coral Triangle. Hold on to your Imperm, to your Effect Veiler, to your whatever, until they go to use the effect of their Marincess Coral Triangle. Discard 1, negate. No Marincess Wave for you. Unfortunate. Sucks to be you, Chief. See you later. And then they're going to link summon into their Bubble Reef. 2800 attack, gets boosted up to 46. You know, it is what it is. They still have a back row. There's still the potential of a Marincess Wave in their hand. We don't know yet. Banish one from the graveyard to boost even higher. We are going to negate that with our Ash Blossom, because we sort of figure ourselves that this is going to be over this turn. We want to make sure we have as much advantage as we possibly can. It's got 5200 attack points. We're going to open up with Mo Yi. Mo Yi reveals Strategist to summon a token. They go for Imperm. Imperm is the main reason you play Heavenly Dragon Circle. We're going to chain now to that Imperm our Heavenly Dragon Circle to sacrifice the Mo Yi to search our deck for a worm monster and add it to our hand. This is also why you play Shifana. Shifana can basically now take the place of Mo Yi, special summoning itself to the field to act as a level 4 non-tuner for your Synchro Summon. That's why you play those cards. Out comes the Grandmaster. Grandmaster searches the deck for the Swordsoul Emergence. We had a couple of options. We could have gone into the Strategist. We could have gone into whatever. We chose the Emergence so we can search our deck for Protos. Now we're going to banish 3 from the graveyard, summon out Protos. We're going to declare Water. He's going to boost up to 7k, but we don't care. We're going to declare Water to destroy all water monsters on the field, and for the next 2 turns, no water monsters, which of course impacts us because we don't get our Swordsoul tokens, but whatever, you know, it obviously impacts our opponent way heavier. Go into the battle phase, 28 to the face, 25 to the face. That's a lot of damage here. Opponent's down to 2700 life points. Pass turn to our opponent, and of course their plays are very heavy limited, but they don't know that because they normal summon Spring Girl, realize they can't link summon, and then scoop it up. Pretty much as simple as that. That is exactly why we went for the Protos over the Baron de Fleur or over the Qing Ying. The reason we did that is specifically because we knew we would be able to lock our opponent out on their next turn and just stop them from playing the game. Like they just couldn't play the game. Unfortunate. Sucks to suck. Again, Marincess is cool. They're definitely a one-trick pony. I was more excited about them when they came out than I am now. I'm not too big into the idea of the deck now, because it's, as you saw, it's one Imperm away from being useless. I don't know what to tell you, Chief. But again, that's just my 2 cents on it. Still a very good game. Again, shows our opponent sort of like knows our combos very well, but it'll also give you an opportunity to see exactly where you need to hit them to cripple them as much as you possibly can. So with that being said, that's the 3 games. You got a bit of context for how the deck plays. It's typical combos, it's atypical combos, some of the versatility. Let's get into the deck profile, and we're going to take it card for card. So, card for card analysis of the deck. First of all, we're going to trim the fluff. So we got that triple Maximus C, we've got that triple Ash Blossom, double Goose Bell and Haunted Mansion, we got the triple Infinite Impermanence, double Cult of the Grave, Cross-Out Designator, and triple Cosmic Cyclone. Those 17 hand traps. 17, that is so many. Those 17 slots, go nuts. Do whatever you want and just have fun with it. As long as you're enjoying it, play it. We recently sort of picked up the Cosmic Cyclone because I hate Eldritch, basically, and it's also a decent counter to Flowound the Rees. Not as if we needed more, you know, we've already got the Imperm. Ghost Bell also impacts some of them, not as much. It stops the Toucan, or maybe the Street, it's one of the two of them, can't remember which. So this sort of impacts them. The Ash Blossom definitely impacts them. But you know, a lot of these other cards here, these guys don't impact them at all. So we wanted something additional in order to hurt them a little bit. We didn't want more monster negation. You know, we didn't want to put Effect Veiler in because we've already got monster negation left, right, and center. So we decided Cosmic Cyclone would be a wee bit better, add some more to the back row removal of the deck. But again, this can be Twin Twisters, this can be Effect Veiler, Gamma, go nuts, do whatever you want. Getting into the main deck, we're going to separate this out. You've got Swordsoul and you've got Tenyi sort of worm type strategies. So you get 3 Swordsoul monsters in your main deck. You've got Swordsoul of Mo Yi, which is your ideal starter. All 3 of these monsters do the same thing in that they all summon out a Swordsoul token under different conditions. The token is a level 4 tuner. Mo Yi on special or normal summon will reveal a worm monster or a Swordsoul card in your hand to summon her token. Taya will banish a Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your graveyard to summon its token. The strategist will discard a worm or Swordsoul card to summon itself and a token straight from the hand. So they all summon a token. The token is always a level 4 tuner monster. These guys are all non-tuners, so they're all 1-card synchros. They all also have an additional effect that activates when used as synchro material. Mo Yi, when used as material, draws you a card. Taya will send a worm from deck to graveyard, and the strategist will inflict 1200 points of damage. So that's pretty much it for the Swordsoul cards. You've got Swordsoul Emergence, which searches for any of your Swordsoul monsters, pretty much it. And then Swordsoul Blackout, which will pop 1 of your worms and 2 of your opponent's cards. Really powerful trap card, easily searched off of a bunch of your cards. So Blackout is definitely great. On occasion, you may want to use its second effect, where if it's banished, you can special summon a Swordsoul token. You can banish it off of the effect of your Grandmaster, but we'll get to that in a moment. Sometimes that comes up if your opponent interrupts something like your Mo Yi or Taya. Not very often, but it is something to bear in mind. Now, what else have we got? We've got the Tenyi package. So we've got double Ashuna, double Vishuddha, double Adhara, single Shifana. All of these guys have the same effect where if you control no effect monsters, special summon this card from your hand. And then they all have an additional effect that allows you to banish them from the hand or graveyard under different conditions if you control a non-effect monster, like your Monk or your Swordsoul tokens. Ashuna will banish itself to summon a Tenyi monster from the deck. Vishuddha will banish itself to return a card from your opponent's field back to their hand. Adhara will banish itself to return a banished worm monster back to your hand. And Shifana is a little bit different. When one of your non-effect monsters are destroyed by battle or card effect, it will banish itself to resurrect the non-effect monster and then destroy a card in your opponent's field. This card is mainly here to work in conjunction with Heavenly Dragon Circle because of its level. So that's the effect of all of these guys. Heavenly Dragon Circle is another Tenyi card where basically you contribute a worm monster on your field to add to from your deck to your hand another worm monster. So if you summon out the likes of Mo Yi or Taya, activate their effect to summon your token, and your opponent tries to Veiler them, Imperm them, anything like that, well, that's your opportunity to chain to then the Heaven Dragon Circle to search your deck for Shifana. Upon resolution, you're able to special summon Shifana out to the field because all you control is a non-effect token, and then you're going to be able to continue with your synchro summon as if nothing had happened. So it's almost like sort of hand trap protection, as well as being able to search out powerful cards like the Protoss and such. Ultimately, very, very good. It also has an effect where if you tribute a non-effect monster, you can special summon the card you choose, but that's whatever, we don't really care about that too much, because it gets its effects negated, so it's not that great. And its last effect is if you control a non-effect monster, banish it from your graveyard to search your deck for a Tenyi card. So pretty straightforward, very, very good sort of basic hand trap protection. I love this card. It's growing on me a lot since I realized its combo potential, so I'm a big fan. And then the last sort of two cards you want to look at, Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. This card not only is a pretty decent starter going first, it's a godsend going second because it almost always eats an interruption from your opponent. Basically, you can special summon it to your field. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, then you can tribute it as a quick effect to special summon any Swordsoul monster from your deck. So if it resolves, phenomenal, you're getting an additional synchro monster onto your board completely free of charge. But most of the time it's going to get hit by an Ash, it's going to get hit by a Call by the Grave, it's going to get hit with something, and it's going to eat that negate so something else can play through. So Ecclesia, you can play it at 3, I think it's fine at 2. With Strategist going to 2, you may want to bump it up, but I think 2 is fine. And then lastly, Arch Nemesis Protoss, one of the most powerful monsters in the deck. Can be destroyed by card effects, and basically once per turn you are able to declare an attribute that is currently face up on the field, destroy everything of that attribute, and until the end of the following turn, monsters of that attribute cannot be summoned. So I mean, you saw this card against the Marincess matchup. My hair is all over the place. You saw this card in the Marincess matchup completely locking them out of playing the game. They're just not able to play through it. It can't be destroyed, so even worst case scenario, if you declare dark, it will mean that your opponent cannot summon dark monsters, and it will not destroy itself because of its own effect. And it's very easy to summon. You just banish 3 monsters with different attributes from the graveyard. That can be your hand traps, that can be your your Tenyi monsters, considering they're all different attributes. You have all 6 attributes in play right here. So you've plenty of materials to work with when it comes to summoning out your Protoss. So pretty straightforward. Getting into the extra deck next. So quite a lot of cards in here are very, very situational and optional. Yazi is pretty sort of situational. Basically, it gets the opportunity to pop itself and an opponent's card. It doesn't come up often. The only real combination to make it is the likes of Strategist plus Adhara. It's not super common, I'll be real. So the Yazi basically can pop itself on another card your opponent controls, and when it's destroyed, it will summon a worm monster from your deck. So basically, you summon it, pop this card and your opponent's card, special summon out another Swordsoul, and extend again, which is kind of cool. You've got Boxia. Boxia is a phenomenal card going second. Basically, when it's summoned, you choose as many cards on your opponent's field and return them back to the deck equal to the number of different attributes used for its synchro summon. So if you use 2 different attributes, bounce 2 cards back to the deck. Phenomenal. It also has the effect to destroy a card on your field in order to resurrect a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. You are typically going to use that effect on Tenyi Spirit Adhara. Why are you going to use it on Adhara? So you can use Adhara and Boxia in a synchro summon for Xiaofang, Phantom of the Yang Zing. This card basically is going to lock your opponent out of any attributes of Yang Zing monsters that you used for its summon. So because you're using Boxia, Brightness of the Yang Zing, for its summon, you're going to lock your opponent out of light monsters. When it's destroyed, it's sent to the graveyard. You get to add any tuner from your deck to your hand, and if your opponent's monster is destroyed by battle or card effect while it's on your field, special summon a worm monster whose original attribute matches the same as one of the destroyed monsters. So it's got a few effects going on. Its main effect is, of course, the lockout of the light monsters. Situational but good. And then a secondary effect of grabbing a tuner monster from the deck, like your Ecclesia, which is a tuner, very powerful tuner, is also a decent effect that does come up on occasion. Grabbing Ecclesia, grabbing a hand trap, grabbing whatever. So that's a pretty decent combo. You've got the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, very powerful level 8 generic worm synchro monster. Whenever your opponent's monster activates in its effect, banish it. It can also, if it destroys a monster by battle, gains that monster's attack points once per turn, and can declare an additional attack onto a monster that turn. Again, same thing I said in the last video. The monster you go to banish off of Draco Berserker's effect has to be in the same location after paying cost as it was activated in order for it to be banished. So if your opponent's card sends itself from the hand to the graveyard, or the field to the graveyard, or banishes itself from the graveyard, or whatever as cost to activate their effect, Draco Berserker will not banish the card, regardless of where it ends up. It has to be in the same location after the paying of cost as where it activated. Bear that in mind. Pretty simple ruling. but it's one that people trip up on an awful lot. I just want to make sure you guys are ahead of the game a wee bit. So just an OTK machine pretty much. Dragite is basically just a spell or trap negate, as long as you have a water monster in your graveyard, which is going to be your Mogi or your Shyvana. Just a spell or trap card negate. Grandmaster, this is your main sort of engine synchro monster. This will be the first one you summon, because on summon you can search your deck for a Swordsoul card, and then for every turn after that you're able to banish a worm monster or a Swordsoul card from your graveyard in order to negate a monster's effect on the field, which is pretty nuts. So it's sort of like a 2-in-1 extender into negate sort of deal. Grandmaster is still a very, very powerful card. I think he's quite good. I would recommend playing him at 2. Do you have to play him at 2? No, but I think you'd be stupid not to. I think two copies of this guy is big. I think that's big. Xiaofeng we've talked about. Then you've got your 3 level 10s. Baron de Fleur is of course the most powerful of the 3. Again, everyone has seen this card basically in every one of my decks since it launched. Anything that plays a tuner in it. But yes, again, very generic, level 10. As a once while face up Omni Negate, and once per turn destroy a card in the field. Really straightforward. You've got the Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying. For every banished card, boost up by 100 attack and defense, and your opponent gets reduced by 100 attack and defense. If it would be destroyed, banish a card instead, and if a card is banished while it's face up, pick a card on your opponent's field and in their graveyard, banish both. Pretty good non-targeting banishment removal. Very, very important for specific matchups. You need to have this card in your deck, because otherwise there are certain cards in the game that you're just not going to be able to out. Like the Avramax, that was very difficult for us to get rid of. Avramax is a fantastic example of a card that you're going to struggle with. Technically you do have options like the Star Eater, which we'll get to in a second, but this guy, super important. 100% play it. Last of our level 10s, we've got the Sinister Sovereign, the newest addition to the Swordsoul Synchro deck. Basically, it gets 2 sort of interruptions during your opponent's turn. Whenever they special summon a monster, you can banish one of those monsters, and whenever they activate a spell or a trap, you can banish that spell or trap. And whenever you do each, you inflict 1200 points of damage. You can do each of them once per turn, which means you get 2 banishes, 2 sets of 1200 damage, so 2400 points of damage overall. Really good at banishing a card like a continuous spell or a field spell or anything like that that would have a lingering effect. This card is very good at getting rid of. At the same time, it can also get rid of cards that have problematic effects in the graveyard, such as your virtual world cards, your branded opening, anything like that that would still have troublesome effects in the graveyard. So really good card overall. It also has another effect that kind of sort of comes up on occasion. Whenever you synchro summon another worm while it's face up, you get to draw a card. It doesn't come up a lot. I think I've maybe used it once, but I mean, it's an additional effect, you know. It's just bonus on top of having 2900 attack. So pretty nice. I'd probably say this guy, I don't know, it's a toss up between him and Cheng Ying as to who's better for second place. But Baron de Fleur is definitely third. It's hard to tell with these two. It's very situational. Then we've got the Star Eater at level 11. This guy is here purely for the situations in which you have a Swordsoul token and one of your level 7 Tenyi monsters, which very rarely happens. I'll give you that. Oh, I suppose Ecclesia also sort of fits the bill if it's negated, but very, very rarely happens. It does. It's very rare. This is more of a placeholder for the Psychic End Punisher, which is actually a good level 11 synchro monster. So this is more of a placeholder than anything else, but its effect is okay. Basically, it's kind of like Armades. When synchro summon, cards and effects can't be activated, so it sort of protects itself on summon, and if it attacks, it's unaffected by other cards. So, you know, pretty straightforward 3200 attack beater that is unaffected by cards while attacking. Pretty nice. Nothing really special about it. Then we've got Geomathmech Final Sigma. Now this guy is, I would say, actually somewhat important. If you're looking for another slot to fill, this is actually a really solid option, because it's used summon using one of your level 8 synchros as well as any of your level 4 tuners, including your Swordsoul tokens. And basically, as long as it's in your extra monster zone, it's unaffected by any card effects, and if it battles a monster, any damage it inflicts is doubled. So basically, it's an unaffected 3k beat stick. That's pretty much why it's here, because certain decks just can't get rid of it. It's as simple as that. They just can't do it. So having the option to go into this incredible sort of beat stick that they just can't get past is always a very nice option to have, and is definitely not worth looking down on. We have double monk of the Tenyi here just to enable your Tenyi cards. You can bump this up to 3 and cut the Star Eater if you want to, entirely up to you, but they're just here as engine cards. Lastly, Shaman of the Tenyi, discard a card to resurrect a worm from the graveyard and then get going. So you can resurrect some of your Synchro Monsters or resurrect some of your Swordsoul cards in order to get some combos going. That's the deck. I appreciate it was a lot of sort of talking about the different combos and such. You can fill it up again, 17 slots to do whatever you want with. You can go absolutely nuts. You can throw in some Lightning Storm. You can get, you know, I would definitely recommend playing these. You can throw in some Gamma action. You know, you got the Max C, some Nibiru, going, and you know, just do whatever you want. You know, I was playing a different lineup, obviously, but whatever cards you decide to put in those final slots is entirely personal preference, up to you and what tickles your fancy. So that's everything I have to say in the deck. Like I said, if you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, feel free to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed. Tell me down below what you think of Sword Souls, and I will see you all in the next one.